Hey there, what is up? It is Nikki, your go-to gal and life coach for young adults. I created my coaching practice to help young adults get their shit together, just like I did. Through taking a hard look at your calendar, your mind, and your habits, we work together through a step-by-step process to create the life that you actually want. This is episode number 6, and we are talking about signs you are self-sabotaging your goals. And I think this is a really, oh, of course, everything. Personally, everything is really important. But this is one thing I really see a lot of growth that happens with my clients. So that's why I want to talk about it today. But of course, a part of my Adulting in Action coaching program, I offer some online development modules that help you young adults. It just helps you develop 6 key skills that I see all 20-something-year-old young adults need. And one of the modules is about accountability. And in that module, I dive into self-sabotage and how it personally affects you. And this is one place I see massive growth for my clients, because at this point, by the time that they get to this accountability module, they're kind of getting into the groove of coaching. They understand what it is, how we're working on it. And it's really, at that point, they've kind of taken their guard down, which I totally understand, especially if you've never had coaching. When we start this process, it's a little, you might be a little tense, maybe refraining from saying all the things that you want to say, or maybe you're not. Who knows? Either way, by the point you get to the self-sabotage part in the accountability module, you're ready to dissect these things because you're taking a hard look at yourself, your habits, everything that's going on. And it's just super helpful to now see this from a different perspective of how you self-sabotage your goals. So let's dive into it. Self-sabotage refers to the act of undermining oneself or one's own effort, often unconsciously, that leads to negative consequences in one's life. It involves behaviors, thoughts, or actions that limit or undermine one's own success, happiness, or well-being, despite having the capability and desire to achieve them. So, of course, self-sabotage can affect all areas of your life: relationships, career, health, overall happiness. And of course, having or self-sabotaging your goals does lead to missed opportunities, low self-esteem, a sense of helplessness, or even frustration. So, talking about that definition of self-sabotage, it talks about often unconsciously. And I think that's really important here because we all self-sabotage, but we're not aware that we're actually self-sabotaging our goals. And that's when, kind of going back to what I said about my clients, is that when we start to review the accountability section, this is where they're starting to develop consciously or understanding consciously what they're doing. And once you turn the unconscious into conscious, that's when you can start making changes. All right. And another thing in that definition that I want to note is, like, you self-sabotage your own goals or undermine your own success, as they say, but despite having the capability and desire to achieve them. I hear this all the time. And I mean, shit, I even do it sometimes too. We're all not perfect. We all self-sabotage no matter how good we are, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. All right. But you have the capability to reach your goals and you have the desire to reach your goals, but it still holds you back. And I think that's important to understand because I hear it all the time. I want this so bad. I want to do this, but yet I can't do it. That's because you're self-sabotaging. All right. So this is really important, understanding self-sabotage, because it gives you the tools to make positive changes, essentially, which then helps you reach your goals. It can help you build healthier habits, create a life that aligns with what you value. And it's really just an overall journey of self-discovery and self-improvement that can lead to lasting transformations. And personal growth is always a journey. And regardless of your goals, there's going to be a little sprinkle or element of self-sabotage. You never reach this level and you're like, okay, I'm perfect. I'm no longer going to self-sabotage. It's always going to happen. Okay. And I will give you some examples when we dive into it, because it depends on the levels that you're at. I'm in my 30s. I got my shit together in my 20s, but I still self-sabotage. It just shows up differently in my 30s than how it looked in my 20s. So here are several reasons why you need to understand how you self-sabotage. Number one, it affects relationships, self-esteem, reduces stress. It helps you make better decisions. You're able to live a happier or more fulfilling life, and you get healthier coping strategies. So why it's important to, that's ultimately the reasons why it's important to understand how you self-sabotage. With relationships, self-sabotaging behaviors can negatively impact your relationships with others, and really understanding these behaviors can help you communicate more effectively, manage conflict, and build healthier connections. All right. One thing that just came to mind, I'll throw myself underneath the bus, is one way that would self-sabotage relationships with me, like dating relationships, is I'm a very independent woman. And having that hyper independence, anytime conflict would occur, I'm like, I'm good. I don't need you. But that ended up self-sabotaging because I never was able to work through the conflicts. And you need that skill because conflict's going to be everywhere. It doesn't matter what relationship, what partner you have, there's going to be conflict. For self-esteem, so this is really overcoming self-sabotage can help you lead to improve self-esteem and self-worth. So recognizing your value and capabilities really helps you break free from the negative thought patterns that undermine your confidence. So with reduced stress, I'm just skimming my notes to make sure I include the important parts, but that really, self-sabotage, when you hinder yourself from reaching your goals, it's going to cause more stress because you're doing the exact opposite of what you want to be doing, essentially. So of course, when you learn your self-sabotaging tendencies, it's going to help you reduce the stress because now you're not conscious and you can start making decisions that benefit you more than not benefit you. The decision-making part, I really like this one. And I've really seen a massive improvement in my life with decision-making now since I understand how I self-sabotage. And really, with decision-making, it's important because you recognize your self-sabotaging tendencies that enable you to make more informed and rational decisions. You can assess situations objectively and avoid making choices that are influenced by self-destructive patterns. Really, really important. And I think this one can be directly, what comes to my mind when I think about what I just said is alcohol consumption in your 20s, or maybe that overeating, smoking, other drugs, that sort of stuff, that involves self-destructive patterns. And when you learn how you self-sabotage, let's just say with food, alcohol, drugs, whatever it might be, and you understand how to change that, you can make better decisions, right? Before my 20s, I would just get wasted and just on weekends or even on a work night. And now, I understand how poorly that reflected on me, but of course, how poorly I showed up in my life because of those tendencies. So I make better decisions now. Let's see. So of course, overall, why it's important is those healthy coping strategies. And this is where, you identify the self-sabotage and you replace it with healthier coping strategies. So it can effectively or lead to more effective ways to help you manage stress, challenges, emotions, yada, yada, yada. So let's get into the 7 signs you are self-sabotaging your goals or progress. Because what I talked about just before this was understanding why it's important to understand how you self-sabotage and those things with relationships, self-esteem, reduced stress, decision-making, happier, more fulfilling life, and then healthy coping strategies are gonna come into play now when we're diving into these 7 signs. So 7 signs you are self-sabotaging your goals or progress. Number 1, you're too hard on yourself. And this is calling all my perfectionists. You are too hard on yourself. So what that means is that you're always constantly thinking, I could have done this better. I need to be doing more of XYZ. So when you do things, it's never good enough. So then you end up self-sabotaging your progress or your goals because you're just never satisfied. Number 2, the second sign, you are self-sabotaging on your goals. You are quick to point out the negatives. Doesn't matter what you're doing, you're always finding the negative out of something. All right? It's not good for you. Keeps you in the negative. I always say this on consultation calls. When I talk about our coaching calls, one thing that we do is we talk about the positives that happened in the past week. Kind of like a body emotion stays in motion. The more we focus on positive, the more positive comes out of life. It's the exact same thing. The more you focus on negative, the more negative thing comes out of life. All right. Sign number 3, that you're self-sabotaging your goals or progress. You wait until the last minute to get things done. This one's for my procrastinators. All right. This could be an example of writing a paper the night before it's due in college, or not paying your rent till 4:30 on the 5th day of the month before that late fee hits. All right. There's no need to wait until the last minute. And when you wait until the last minute to do things, you increase your stress because you're procrastinating. More procrastination equals more stress. And sometimes things don't work out. And even when you wait until the last minute, let's say you get a 75 on your paper, but if you actually planned it out and took the time, you could have gotten a 95. If you actually paid your rent on the 1st instead of the 5th, it could have saved you $50, right? So waiting until the last minute self-sabotages your goals and progress because you could have done better. Sign number 4 is that you're disorganized. When you're disorganized, we know shit doesn't go according to plan. And a really big thing, naturally, when I talk about getting your shit together, most of the time it's because you're disorganized. And being disorganized is just a daily way that you self-sabotage your goals. It doesn't mean you have to be OCD and all this kind of stuff and be super organized, but there are plenty of ways that you can improve to help you improve your progress. All right. So this could be with missing deadlines at work, at college, whatever it is. You're disorganized because you don't know deadlines that are coming up, and that may prevent you from, or may occur, or if you miss a deadline, like in college, because you're disorganized, you may get a 0 instead of a 75, or you may miss a really important meeting that your boss said that you had to be at. You may forget to pay your rent. That kind of goes hand in hand with the one example that I just gave before. Sign number 5, you are self-sabotaging your goals or progress. You feel like a fraud, phony, or you have imposter syndrome. That is right. So it could be like you don't connect with others because you have nothing important to say. That's one way you self-sabotage relationships. It could be with friendships or other people. You do have plenty to say. You're not a fraud. You're not a phony. Or one thing that I have as an example as well is that you don't go after jobs that you're actually qualified for, or even that you want, because you feel like a fraud, phony, or maybe you have imposter syndrome. And I don't know the exact numbers, so don't come at me for this. But it reminded me of This is kind of for the women. It was like when you're searching for a job, like 70% of men, it was a high number, will apply for a job even though they're not qualified for the job. Whereas if a woman sees a job that they like, but they're not qualified for, only like 20 or 30% apply for the job. I'm just throwing those percentages out there. They are not accurate. You can Google it if you want to hear that, but that is one way that women self-sabotage their career, their job, their passions, whatever it might be. All right. Sign number 6, that you're self-sabotaging your goals or progress. You overdo it. This one's mine. This is definitely one of my signs that that I'm actually going through right now as I make this podcast. So you take on too much and you can't finish it all. So this can be in plenty of ways. And once again, not trying to just focus on the women, but especially being a mom in your 20s, you always overdo it. You want to take on everything, or maybe it's just natural instinct to take on those things and you just overdo it. And that kind of leads into the next sign, which I'm not going to go into too quick. But one thing I do want to note with this, with self-sabotaging your goals or progress, and kind of relating back to what I said, and I give you these, examples of me because I know I see it in other 20-something-year-olds, and hopefully that you can relate to it as well. But when it comes to overdoing it and taking on so much, I think this also comes into play with putting too much pressure on yourself. And that is one thing that I'm doing that is self-sabotaging my goals, because I'm putting too much pressure on myself to do certain things, which means I'm overdoing it, and then I don't get it all done. Then I'm too hard on myself. I'm quick to point out the negatives, and then it just crashes and burns and leads into the 7th sign. You're burnt out, emotionally, physically exhausted, whatever it might be. So those 7 signs right there. Number 1, you're too hard on yourself. That's for the perfectionist. Number 2, you're quick to point out the negatives. That's for the negative Nancy's. Number 3, you wait until the last minute. That's for the procrastinators. Number 4, you're disorganized. Number 5, you feel like a fraud or phony. That's for the imposter syndrome people. Number 6, you overdo it. That's for the overachievers. And number 7, you're burnt out, which I feel like is everybody, because when you self-sabotage and you continuously do it and get in the way of your goals, it's like being a hamster on a hamster wheel. You're just going, but you're not getting anywhere. You're not having any progress. And I feel like all these signs eventually lead into that 7th sign, that you're burnt out. So like I said, a part of my Adulting in Action coaching program is those online development modules that help you develop 6 supplemental skills that all young adults need. And one of those modules is accountability. And this is where I dive deeper into self-sabotage and how it personally affects you. So we dive into this. You kind of have an understanding of these signs and why it's important. But in the coaching program, we bring it from unconscious to conscious. And this is where we start making changes and realizing in small, simple ways how self-sabotage affects your goals and progress. And then we change it. All right. So I hope this was super helpful for you. Drop a comment below with what resonated with you, your biggest takeaway during this episode, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.